Welcome to the Get Over Yourself podcast. This is author and athlete B.rad discovering ways to be healthy, fit, and happy in hectic, high-stress modern life. So let's slow down and take a deep breath, take a cold plunge, and expertly balance that competitive intensity with an appreciation of the journey. That's the theme of the show. Here we go. The Get Over Yourself podcast is brought to you by Almost Heaven, beautiful compact home use sauna kits, ancestral supplements, grass-fed organ meats in a capsule, DNA Fit, genetic testing for custom diet and exercise recommendations, Integro Health, high-potency liquid probiotic called Flourish, Organifi, organic powdered superfoods, delicious green, gold, and red powders, Wild Idea Buffalo, sustainable, grass-fed, beyond organic, real ketones, clean burning ketones for athletic performance and fat loss. And check out the bradkearns.com/shop page. That's my personal selection of favorite products for health, fitness, and peak performance. And here we go with the show.
We have lived in that presence of death and in an intimate relationship with death as long as we've existed. And it's good for us. It's a healthy thing for us to be near it and to operate with its presence because it affects the way we conduct ourselves. It's a big world and you need to participate in it if you want to have any productivity. Like if you really want to not only bring meaning, but really bring value to other people. Being exposed to those intense situations, the body just goes, hey, listen, I don't have the ability to sustain this amount of fear. This is too much work.
Let's talk about ancestral supplements. If you're into ancestral health, primal paleo, keto, you know the importance of consuming these unique agents contained in bone marrow, in the nose to tail organ meats, liver, kidney, all that stuff, the great bone broth benefits. Well, how's it going? For me, since years ago when Dr. Kate Shanahan asserted the importance of these wonderful nutritional benefits that you can't get elsewhere, not too good. I don't know how to cook a liver or a kidney, but now your problems are solved forever when you go to ancestralsupplements.com, a wonderful company filled with people who are living the dream, walking their talk, and bottling up the purest, cleanest sources of grass-fed organ meats, kidney, liver, bone marrow, all in these wonderful capsules. I dump them in my smoothie every day. I'm healthy. I don't have to worry. It's an incredible dietary boost. And this is so different from swallowing a bunch of those synthetic vitamins in those giant bottles from the big box stores. Highly questionable health practice. This stuff is the real deal. Grass-fed organ meats, pure as can be. Ancestralsupplements.com. I know. I got to talk to Laird Hamilton, man. My surfer friends couldn't believe it. But he's got a new book out called Lifeguard, and it is a beautiful piece of work. I highly recommend reading it, and that's saying a lot for me because who has time to read a lot these days? We're too busy being distracted, connected to technology, and Laird has a few things to say about that. I think you're going to love this interview. We hit it hard. I teed this guy up, and he just goes off, and he might not be a polished, professorial, eloquent speaker, but when he offers up these insights, they're really worth reflecting more deeply upon, because I think he's locked into an existence, a lifestyle that transcends the patterns and the traps that so many of us engage in. And a lot of it's through his constant pursuit of the outer limits of human peak performance, especially in the water. I've been following this guy for a while, and he's had a tremendous impact on me. I love his stuff so much. It's been such a privilege to get to meet him a few times in person, hanging out in Malibu with Sisson. And when you see him in person, as you might imagine, he's got that larger-than-life personality, this incredible positive energy, always with a quick laugh, which you'll enjoy during the show. And he's also a quote machine with these profound insights. And it's so nice to reflect on this stuff for a long time afterward. I got a couple questions off about his book and some things that I read that have been really sticking with me. So overall, I think it's going to be a fun interview. If you haven't heard of Laird Hamilton, keep listening. And get out and live some more life, man. Get off the rush hour traffic. Go to the beach, talk to some other surfers. Okay, watch a little bit on YouTube. But Laird is known best as the big wave surfer king, the ultimate waterman. In addition to his affinity for the water, Laird has been labeled as an inventor, author, stuntman, model, producer, TV host, fitness and nutrition expert, husband, father, and adrenaline junkie, a renowned innovator and guiding genius of crossover board sports, including toe-in surfing, stand-up paddleboarding, and hydrofoil boarding. Laird's the essential waterman, continuously pushing the limits and expanding all possibilities. You know about his wife, Gabby Reese, the ultimate fitness power couple of the universe, and they split their time between Hawaii and the urban metropolis of Los Angeles and the Malibu area. I asked him a little bit about going back and forth and managing and juggling all the things that he's got going in life. I think you're going to love his insights and get out there and do more. Have fun like Laird. Enjoy the show. Thanks for joining me, Laird.
My pleasure.
This thing is the real deal. I'm holding up a book called Lifeguard. I'm very impressed, man. And,
thank you.
I get a lot of books.
Surprised.
What's that?
You sound a little surprised.
Well, I'll tell you, I get a lot of books. I write a lot of books, read a lot of books, and a lot's been already said. And when you get into something that's got an interesting take that hits you really hard right away, that's something special, deserving of a compliment, man.
Well, I appreciate that.
And this guy Julian Bora, I guess you guys are pretty tight. You're co-writer, and he starts out writing in his person, talking about you, and then we jump in. So I kind of like that pattern, really cool. But the start of the book, it blew me away because it was getting really deep into like the meaning of life, and I think the takeaway message is that you got to be physical. You got to connect the mind and the body. We're here in high tech life where we're mostly just sitting in front of a screen all day instead of experiencing water or a different environment. And I guess that's kind of your main message that you've been conveying for a long time.
Well, I mean, because this is where we are. I mean, we're on this physical plane, and this is who we are and where we are. It's like when we talk about our biology, there's certain things that you're just not gonna, no matter how sophisticated we get technologically, we're not gonna change some aspects of our biology overnight. I mean, maybe that'll happen, but it's going to take a lot more than a generation or two for that to happen.
There's some prediction that we might get used to eating sugar in about 50,000 years. That's about the prediction. We're going to evolve. Meanwhile, we don't want to wait.
No. Oh, and we can't. And in a way, I think we can't forget our. Part of it, it's interesting. I always use surfing as a metaphor, but surfing when you surf, you can tell what's happening behind you by looking in front of you. And it's it's a pretty interesting way to go about, things and where, if you to begin to understand where we've been, we have to look at where we're going to, but also we have to be realistic about what we are, right? We have to be realistic about that we're still on physical beings on a physical planet. And it's like, I remember one time I was talking to Elon Musk, and who's
that?
Yeah, it's a guy that just makes rockets. but I was, anyways, it's not about him per se as much as I use him as an example, but where he's so focused and so in his head, right? He's so much in his head that it's like I put my hand on his shoulder and I was like, hey, don't forget to take care of this, like your body, like as intelligent as we are, and as intelligent as some of people are, like Elon and these other incredible minds.
we have to remember that they need to nurture the body too, because they're really not even optimizing, in my opinion, their true intelligence. Like they're so much more intelligent that they, in a way, it's like, wow, look how smart that guy is. But you're kind of like, but is he operating to his full potential? If you use everybody else as a reference, you could say, well, I mean, he's so far beyond anybody that he can, that you can't use him as a comparison. But for himself, ultimately for himself, is he really operating to his true potential? And I think that's what I think we all have to be kind of responsible to that, connected to, you're your own doctor. You're the best doctor that you're ever going to have, and no one can tell you how you feel better than you can tell yourself how you feel. No one can tell you better if a medicine's working for you or not better than you can. I mean, and kind of take responsibility. I think we live in a time where we love to just go like, hey, I'm going to go to this guy and he's going to tell me what's going to, how I'm going to be, and I'm going to this other guy and he's going to tell me, how it's going to be, and I'm going to go, and we're instead of kind of taking it on ourselves and but ultimately optimizing intelligence through physicality. That the brain without oxygen from the lungs and the heart doesn't last long. So feed the body, nurture the body, and then you'll stimulate and you'll get the brain to work even better, right? So I just like to tie it, to tie it in. I think that's part of the messaging in the book, is for us to connect everything and not departmentalize. I think you think about the 50s or the 40s, or it's like, okay, he's a jock. Hell, he's a professor, like somehow. But then if you look back in history, like somebody like Leonardo da Vinci, well, he was a strong and powerful individual, right? And could chisel stone all day, but optimizing his thought. So there was a relationship between physicality and mentality, as I would say. I think there's a connection that we have to nurture and be aware of and consistently feed.
Well said, Dr. Laird. You're onto something here, and I think a lot of us in modern life are getting pushed further and further away from owning this concept. And we all played when we were kids. At least people of our age played. Now, I don't know. The kids probably don't even play starting at age 1 when they get their screen in their hand. But if someone's kind of stuck and not really grasping the importance of this, they watch you surfing the big wave and they go, wow, that's really awesome. I would never do that. That's crazy. Or they watch Alex Honnold climbing the thing in Yosemite and go, wow, that guy's so crazy he could slip and die. What would you say to kind of bring in the Elon Musk or whoever you have a chance to talk to, that we all can benefit from exploring those physical limits that you've been all about in your life?
Well, I think that's part of our responsibility of being alive. That's one of our purposes is to, again, talking about reaching your full potential. When I watch Alex climb, it makes complete sense to me. Like, that makes sense to me. I look at that and I go, yeah, you're at a level in your skill that that you can do something and not make a mistake. I think I go, bravo. I'm like, that's the evolution of our skill. That's the highest level. To be able to say, hey, I can go do this thing without falling. I can ride this wave without falling. I can climb this mountain without falling. I think that's, first of all, the mental fortitude to be able to have the experience to actually make that commitment that I'm able to be that. But I think that it's a human responsibility to get out and live and experience life. And the fact is that the presence of death, as I would describe it, as kind of shadowed as it may be in our modern society, doesn't make it any less relevant or present. It doesn't, just because we've shadowed it and pushed it further away and disguised it and done all these things, just because we seat belted and airbag it and
warning signs.
yeah. All that stuff, just because we've done all this stuff doesn't make it any less relevant. And the fact is that we have lived in that presence of death and in an intimate relationship with death as long as we've existed. And in nature, it's it's good for us. It's a healthy thing for us to be near it and to operate with its presence, because it affects the way we conduct ourselves. It makes us act differently when we're at risk. We act differently. We're better.
I think maybe some people misunderstand this who aren't in extreme sports, that your fear is okay out there when you're facing giant waves because it brings out the best in you.
Well, it's mandatory. It's a necessity. First of all, I would question your ability to understand if you were in a situation that had, like a mountain climber on a ledge, that if you lose your footing, you fall, you die. So pretty clear, like that's a pretty clear thing. Like you know that a mistake and for me, so that's I think and then that once you're in that emotion of that you have. And again, there's a difference between being scared and having fear. And fear is an emotion that you can use that can make you faster. I always say, if you want to see what fear looks like, watch an antelope run from a cheetah. I mean, that's what it looks like. You want to see what fear looks like, and usually the antelope gets away. By the way, so as fast as the cheetah is, somehow the antelope manages to get away most of the time. And that's fear. That's that understanding of, hey, I'm smart. My vision, my hearing, my muscle, everything's firing at optimum, which is part of our life. It's our presence. I got my attack dog.
Oh, love it.
Stop it.
Authentic Hawaiian experience there.
Yeah, I got chickens and
I thought I heard some chickens too. Yeah. Oh, beautiful, man. So let me ask you this, Laird. When you mentioned Alex Honnold, and I remember halfway through the movie seeing him writing the notes in his journal, and that's when it lit up for me that this guy is actually memorizing every single move, and that his right hand goes here into this little hook, and his left foot goes up to that bump in the rock, and so he memorized the route. But when you're out there in the surf, it doesn't seem to be exactly lining up with something that he did on land, because you're at the mercy of the waves. Does this have that element of danger that you cannot control? And how do you deal with that, or how do you accept that risk if it's what's the percentage, Well,
when you look at Alex's work, okay, he's dealing with a fixed environment other than, okay, there's dew on the rock, or there's glare, or there's something, but he's dealing with a fixed thing where he's accumulated this library of techniques and of moves for these situations that allow him, and then a memorization pattern that it allows him to get through his course. Now ours is again different but similar, because we're understand our experience at looking at waves, watching waves, being on waves, watching what they do and how they do it over thousands and thousands of hours gives us a knowledge bank to be able to tap into that information and say, okay, well, when it does that, this happens. Now, each one being slightly different, yet we have an accumulation of information to use to implement into the situation, and then that's what allows us to do it. And the fact is that, what do they say? There's a predictability in chaos, but the fact is that waves are highly predictable, much more than humans. I mean, humans are the ones that I think do the most unpredictable things, that where waves don't all of a sudden come from the land out to the sea. They're always coming from the sea to the land. They're always at a given spot. They always move a certain direction. I mean, there's just certain characteristics that are very reliable for the knowledgeable. For those who have knowledge, those things are very consistent and very reliable. For someone who looks from the side, it might be kind of confusing. But listen, stuff happens. We know that, right? We know that things can happen. That's part of life, and how you respond in those moments, and what you the moves that you make really feed into, first of all, your intentions originally. Why do you do this? I always say, if you really want to see why someone's doing something, put them in a situation where where they're going to be tested, and you'll know right away their sincerity. Because it's like, if you're doing it because you love it and it's in your heart and it's all you've ever wanted to do, then you're good with what's going to happen. You're okay with it. I mean, I guarantee you that Alex was going to be okay with falling, that he was going to be. On the one day he stopped. I go, respectable, good call. You didn't feel it. Hey, listen to your intuitions. You got cameras, the whole thing. You got all these distractions taken away from the thing you're actually trying to do. Listen to your gut. So I a lot of respect for that. But that's I think that's your. I mean, this is what we do. This is what we do. This is what we love. This is what we're born to do. This is what we've done for our life. And so I think that's what makes you respond correctly. I go, if you're doing it for other reasons, then I quit. I wouldn't be surprised if you do something foolish in the heat of the moment.
The Barney moves out there in the ocean, putting other surfers at risk too, because they're out there to get their picture in the magazine or something.
Or chicks think it's cool, or whatever it is. I mean, there's 1,000 things. There's 1,000 intentions, and maybe all of us have a little of each of it. I talk about, there's 3 things that you do when that most people that do dangerous things. There's kind of 3 ways you approach it. One way is denial. Another way is you operate within your kind of your experience. And then there's ignorance. So we have ignorance, which you just don't know.
2 of those aren't too good, man.
Yeah, well, I'm saying you have ignorance, and I think there's a combination of all 3 of those, right? If I say myself, how do I go about doing something? Maybe there's a little denial, a little ignorance, a lot of experience. Maybe there's not very much experience, a lot of denial, a little ignorance. I mean, there's just but those seem to be the 3 kind of, those are the 3 elements that exist in most in my opinion, dangerous situations. And I think maybe some of us have an ability to implement a little bit of denial so that it doesn't impede our decision making and us doing the right thing. I think that we're able to, obviously there's some element that certain people have, that they have an ability to not allow certain factors in a situation to get in the way with them making the right decisions to be where they are. And I, I think there's a little, might be some DNA. My stepdad used to say, big wave riders are born and not made. Wow. You don't make an Alex. Alex is born. You know what I mean? You don't certain people, you don't make these people. These are people that are born like that. And then they have the fortune to be in a situation where they get to really cultivate and evolve this naturally given, drive or instinct or talent, or however you want to describe it.
So the first 10 times you were out on the water with the surfboard, did you feel something at that young age that this was something that you were meant to do, or that you were uniquely suited for it?
I don't think it was. I don't think there was any kind of I thought I was special. It was just I was drawn to the water. So I was naturally just, and it was at such a young age. People, I've been asked plenty of times, what was the scariest thing that ever happened to you? And I said, honestly, I think most of the real intense fear that I experienced was when I was very young, because I was in very treacherous ocean conditions as a young kid, and I would get rescued constantly. And so I think, and it's like I tell people, I go, there's nothing like a scary movie for a young child, right? Because of the purity and the innocence, right? That when you're older, scary movies are scary, but they're not like they are when you're young. right? And so the impact, because we're like sponges when we're really young, the impact that those things have on us is much greater than they are when we're older. You know, our sponges are more full of water when we're older. We just don't absorb the same. It's not the same. And so I think being scared so often and so much growing up, it just wasn't the same when I got older. It didn't mean it wasn't scary. And usually I would get more scared in situations that I was unfamiliar with. But I think that was a little bit like, you know, kind of almost a trained skill that you become. You know, I saw that film where, you know, they did a study with Alex's brain where it's not firing like in these scary situations. And I go, but of course. But of course. That makes complete sense. And I think it wasn't like that before. I think it comes from being exposed to those intense situations. The body just goes, hey, listen, I don't have the ability to sustain this amount of fear. This is too much work. So I'm just, and we haven't died doing it. So we're not going to be scared. And we build from that. And I think over time we get, you know, and you could say you're numb or calloused or jaded or all these expressions. But the fact is, I think that the system itself is so efficient, it just won't let us operate under that intensity for that long. If you're going to climb for 3 or 4 hours, the body can't sustain you being in that intense fear or being scared. And also it knows it's probably not the most efficient emotion to be in during those times to make the best decisions and to be the most economic with our energy. So I think there's a lot of things that happen, you know, and I don't know the science. I just know what seems to make sense to me when it comes to this kind of stuff. And it made a lot of sense that, you know, that you wouldn't be as scared if you had been exposed
right
over long periods of time growing up.
Well, the psychologists assert that, you know, ages 0 to 6 is when most of your programming takes place. And then biology of beliefs, Bruce Lipton says we operate 95 to 99% of the time from our subconscious programming in daily life. So the subconscious programming took place from age 0 to 6. So if you were out there in some gnarly ocean conditions from 0 to 6 and you got used to it and survived and realized that you get back on shore, that's transcending the many challenges that may never, like the big wave surfers are born, not made, but maybe they're made when they're little, and then they go from there.
Exactly. Well, and maybe they're born with a thing that allowed them to be there when they were 6 too. So. Oh
yeah,
there's always that.
There's a different era. The era before helicopter parenting, when they would never let a kid out there doing what you were doing. We should add home videos of you getting into undertow and
there'd be a lot of them.
Oh my goodness.
There'd be a lot. But I thank you for that. But for the science, like I said, in a way, because that is true. Like, I mean, I from 0 to 6, I spent my entire life on the beach from 0 to 6 every day. And I lived from, like, in my formidable years, 3 or 4 years old, I lived on one of the most dangerous beaches in the world and would get sucked out to sea, and people would get sucked out and never seen again. I mean, that was the environment that I grew up in. So for me, it was a little, you know, what looks from a distance as something, you know, so out of this world, is more of a normal. Seem normal. Like, of course you're going to go do that, and of course that happens, and of course that stuff goes on, and it's you know, it's back to that exposure. But having the mentality, I think, is a part of it too. I think there's a piece of it that you know, and I don't know. I heard a study once that they said that there are certain people that are born with like a genetic predisposition to be able to do dangerous things. You know,
right? I mean, you wrote about this really nicely, and you called it the high stress point on the organism, and you observed that these high performing people in all fields a lot of times come from some sort of shit in their background that was tough and challenged them. So a lot of times we hear the stories where it's abuse, abandonment, those terrible things. But, you know, being in the ocean as a young kid, it could be anything, but you've had these high stress experiences that kind of open you up to, I guess, being able to cope better with new challenges.
It's unfortunate. I mean, there's unfortunate. And I mean, somebody goes, is there any way to get benefits? Because it seems like everywhere we look, stress seems to be the thing that really triggers all this great stuff. It's like whether it's heat and ice or whether it's okay, I'm fasting now, or well, I'm on a fitness routine. I mean, everything seems to be stress based, right? We stress the organism, it blossoms, right? We take the rose, we clip the rose tree and it makes roses. But it's a little bit how the system is. I told somebody, I go, well, listen, let's not forget that the system started with a big bang. So, I mean, how much stress was in the Big Bang? I mean, our whole system seems to be designed around kind of a stress-based kind of, performance-driven design. I mean, it just seems like that's where, that is our universe. That our universe is built like that. And I wish it wasn't, because it'd be great to go, hey, lay back on the couch and eat whatever you want and don't do anything and you'll be in the best shape of your life. Like, it's like, don't read anything, don't listen to anything, and you're going to be the smartest person in the world. But there's something to be said about, observing nature. I think nature is probably one of the greatest teachers that there are. And I think anybody real intelligent is just somebody who probably understands nature better. And when I say nature, I mean the universe and, off our planet as well. But just when you understanding kind of, understanding patterns, I think leads to intelligence.
You talk about this. Speaking of stress, you talk about you come out of the water on those big days and you're kind of fried. You called it PTSD, big wave PTSD. And I think that's another thing that people don't recognize. They just see you raising your arms as you ride the wave. But the psychological and physical cost, I want to ask you, you're constantly forced to recalibrate back into real life, and you got to drive the carpool, man. We got to leave at 7:45. You got to go get in line at Costco, and the line's long. Or you're also, I'm going to ask you a big question with that, and also the going back and forth between your roots and rural experience in Hawaii, and then you're coming back to large metropolitan area, running businesses and doing crazy stuff like that. So it seems like these alternate worlds that you're constantly getting the nature experience, the massive stress of peak performance as an athlete in your sport, and then you're going back to, hey, Laird, look at this spreadsheet. We want to see how the coffee creamer's doing in quarter 3. So I wonder how you juggle all that, man.
Well, I mean, I think you've explained it really. That's how I juggle it. Is I go those that I'm using. I'm running. I'm seeking. I'm seeking sanity, but I'm seeking serenity, or I'm seeking a sanctuary, and then I go back out and I run around and do these other kind of more stressful things. I have a friend, this is a great example, but I said, I have a friend that plays professional basketball. And I said, if you're in a stadium, then there's 50,000 people screaming your name, whether they like you or hate you, and you're playing amongst all these people. I go, when you're done with that, you need to go find a big tree somewhere and sit for a while alone underneath a big tree, just to create some yin and yang, some balance, little negative, positive, little. And so I feel like that's one of the fortunate blessings that I have, is that I have a relationship with nature. I'm highly conscious of how important that is. I continue to cultivate that on a regular basis. But then so I can go and run around and be in the carpool lane with the thing, and have get cut off at school by the giant Suburbans, and have all these people with rage and talk about things that are less interesting than riding a giant wave, which is most of the things, and be okay with that. So, and I think that's that all work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy. Well, all play and no work makes Johnny a dull boy too. So I think there's a certain thing about that, using these things to kind of play off of each other. And I think first of all, you come back into nature after you've been in these big metropolitan areas, and your appreciation for
the chickens
creation is chickens, dog, the freedom to go with thing, and okay, I got to go chainsaw some bad tree that's taking over the island because it was introduced 20 years ago or whatever, I'm just saying whatever that part of, be in the ocean, be in the mountains, be in the river. And then you go back and you're like, okay, I'm on the 405 and there's 6 lanes and there's cars in 80 miles in every direction and I'm not going very fast. And, and so I think that really allows me, I think that's the thing that allows me to do it. But I have that relationship with nature. I understand how important it is, and I go back to it. But at the same time, I realize that it's a big world, and you need to participate in it if you want to have any productivity. Like if you really want your life to not only bring meaning, but really bring value to other people. Like if you're going to do anything substantial in the planet and have any kind of positive effect, you can't do it in the bushes. You're just not going to do it. You have to come out and participate. And if you want to have we talk about trying to make a difference but to do that, you got to come out and play. You got to come out and subject yourself to the thing and say, okay, I'll take 10 planes and be in places I don't want to be and do things I don't want to do. So I can do that, and then at the same time, and then have the life and then have the life you want too. So not be sitting back and frustrated because life hasn't gone the way you wanted it to. But then you haven't gone out and taken any risk. You haven't gone outside of your comfort zone.
Or just loaded up too much. Like we all know the classic surfer dude who's going nonstop surfing trips and eating fish tacos and drinking too much beer, and it's maybe they haven't pushed that other edge of their personality and desire to make a contribution to the world. Then on the other side,
I mean, listen, on that note too, I think that, the old saying, ignorance is bliss, but the fact is that you won't appreciate the fish taco and the beer. I don't drink beer, but you wouldn't appreciate it like you would if you went and you did your 8-city tour and you were in the building and you're at the office and you're in the freeway and then you come back and then you're like, wow, this wave is beautiful. This sky is beautiful. Because the people that are always in nature don't appreciate nature, right? Because they just think everywhere is like that. And you're like, yeah, everywhere's not like that. If you want to come with me for a second, I can take you somewhere.
405 north, heading from LAX to,
any direction, you'll see it. So I think that, it's about appreciation and if you want to keep evolving and you want to keep learning, you have to information has to be sought after. You have to go and find to learn. You need to go and if you're curious like I am, and I think that that's one of, you talked about people not having fun or not even knowing how to have fun anymore. I'd say that's probably one of the single most important thing that anyone could do for their health is just to learn how to have fun again. Or just learn how to have fun, period. Like you said, the new generation, they don't even know how to have fun. They don't even know what having fun is. They don't know what playing is. And then you question if they understand what, daydreaming is and having kind of that creative, the way the mind works creatively when you're daydreaming. Like now it's just, how can you daydream? You're on Facebook, this, Google, what that. It's,
It's rough. The ding's going to wake you up from the daydream.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So, Laird, is this sort of an adult personal growth where you were that guy that was stuck? You talk about how you were self-destructive out of the water in your youth, and I think you gave the single best piece of advice from, I think it's Tim Ferriss at the end. He asked everybody, what advice would you give to your 30-year-old self? And he asked every single guest that. You remember what you said?
Yeah, I think I'd stop drinking. For sure.
Oh, that's precious,
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Listen, there's a great passage is, when I was a child, I behaved as a child, but when I became a man, I put away my childish ways. The fact is that I just took me a lot longer than normal. I think I just got I had to be an older man to put away some of those things, and not all of those things, but for me, I feel like a lot of it's about discipline. A lot of it's about wanting to maximize your life, like, wanting to maximize your life, right? And and being somewhat, I would describe it as, my mom said to me once, if you can't be true to yourself, you can't be true to anyone else. And so I just use that as a kind of a guiding force, like, hey, be true to yourself, say what you're going to do what you mean what you say. I mean, these are just, like, these are ways to live by.
Well, you had all the discipline, competitive intensity, focus, drive, all those things, and all you needed to do is redirect them. And I think that's an important point for everybody to reflect on. I know some young kids who were superstar athletes in high school and absolutely at the top of their game, and now they're beyond those years and they're struggling in real life to hold the job or get into the school rhythm or whatever. And it's like, why can't you just apply that discipline that made you all section player of the year? But once you can lock into it, it seems like that's your story too. Is you just got to shore and locked in, and then started. What's the favorite, that orange colored creamer? What's the name of that? The coffee creamer? You gave me a bag.
Laird Superfood.
Let's give a plug for that, man. That stuff's awesome.
The original, the creamer. Well, listen. Just what you said. I have a saying for that, right? Never let your memories be bigger than your dreams. So at the end of the day, don't let there was a anonymous stuntman or said, never let your memories be bigger than your dreams. And I think that we all need to remember that, because if you stop having dreams, then you stop having hope. And if there's no hope, all is lost. I mean, as long as you got love, you can survive, because love is the king. But without hope, it's a pretty sad road. And I think, when you live off of your past, I think we just need to remember, like, hey, that anything's possible, and that you haven't seen the best years of your life. Or the best moments, or I just think there's so much to look forward to, and there's so many things to do. How could we possibly talk about, being the champ of the football team in high school as the apex of our life? Like, we gotta then you gotta change something and have get a dream and start working on it. But and I know it's easy to say that, but the fact is that it can be as easy as just having that thought. That really it can be as simple as believing that you can. But we got to have some hopes. We got to have some dreams. I mean, the end. And back to what you said about the superfood stuff, that my whole food thing is all based around trying to make people feel better. So how can I heard a statistic at one point that the most nutritious thing that some Americans do is drink coffee. And I'm like, if that's true, then we need to try to put some stuff in there. And then from that concept, Laird Superfood was born. And then now it's, now we're working on all kinds of great new products, and people are loving the products that we have, and loving the new ones that we're coming out with. So it's about, I feel like that's a contribution that, again, you want to make a difference in the world. You feed people good stuff and watch them excel. I mean, it's not that tricky.
Oh, love it. So you have all these hopes and dreams and ambitions, and then you're also walking around with a little tiny healthy dose of fear or denial. And I'm wondering, when you paddle out these days, we're the same age, like 53, 54?
I got 55 going now.
All right, 55, double nickel, Michael Jordan. Yeah. Do you have any concessions to your new hip, your many injuries, your mortality? You're a father of young people. Any adjustments? I think that's
the denial comes in. That's where the denial. That's where we just bust out the denial, and we're in full denial. We're like, no, we're still 16, and here we go.
Probably healthy.
If I have any apprehension, it's not. It's not based like, oh, I have kids now, I'm not going to do anything dangerous. It's nothing like that. It would, it really has more to do out of interest and that I'm not as interested in doing certain things, and it doesn't, and some of it, the fact is that some of the lack of interest in certain things isn't that I'm not interested in doing things because it's dangerous. It's just that particular discipline. I've kind of gone through my my learning graft. And I talk about life as a formulaic process, and that I really enjoy the beginning of the arc when it's real steep and the increments are big and you're going up and you're not plateauing and kind of, you're not just riding along on the level ground, but you're really making leaps and bounds. And that comes from doing new stuff. So I'm constantly doing new things and looking for new ways to do old things, to keep inspired. So that's my, I could say, oh, you're not as fast, you're not as this, but I go, listen, at the end of the day, I have a friend who's since passed away, Mr. Wildman, and he was talking about, before steroids in Olympic lifting, the one of the strongest guys, the Olympic world champion, was 50 years old. And the guy was like the strongest guy in the world in the Olympics when he was 50. And it's like, and people go, well, 50, I mean, you're over the hill. I'm like, well, now the guy was at the apex of strength at 50. So again, don't put these limitations and these barriers on yourself, because that's really what's going to stop you more than anything. Like we talk about, we are each our own greatest restrictors. We are our own greatest inhibitors. We inhibit ourselves from doing more stuff than anybody ever does. They can go, you can say, oh yeah, this guy, that guy. We do it to ourselves. We say, okay, now I'm here, I can't do that. Hey, listen, if you don't want to do it, that's one thing. But don't say it's because you're 40, because you're 50, because you're 60. And granted, there are certain things that come along. You're not going to run the 50-yard dash at 70 years old like you will at 25. Okay, great, sure, of course. But maybe you'll be over this, the dash, and you want to go do something else that you can do at 70 at a level that is better than anybody that's 25, because all the experience and understanding you have. So, I think it's we have to, there's times to aim to your strengths, right? And go in that direction. And when age, for whatever reason, or injury or ailment becomes an inhibitor, just adjust and go to a place that it's not, because there is one of those, more than one. Which field do you want to go into?
Well, I love it, man. That's my message with my speed golf passion. I'm not a pro triathlete anymore, and I have no desire to be. And I think, maybe the specialness, the magic of what you did on Jaws in whatever year when it was this many feet high. I mean, doing that over and over every year, it would seem to me to kind of nullify the incredible achievement that happened on that day, and there's no reason to go and try to repeat that over and over.
Well, and listen, the fact is that it just becomes less interesting. I think I really find that I enjoy doing things I haven't done more than doing the thing I've done over and over. Like, I really like to do, like, if I haven't done something, that's a lot more interesting to me, a lot more fulfilling to me as well. So I feel like I would prefer, I'm more interested in looking for the things I haven't done than to continue to do, or just to verify, because a lot of that's your ego. Your ego wants to go out and just go, oh yeah, well I did this. Oh, I got to show you how I can do this. Oh, and look at this, I can do it again and again. After a while, it's kind of like a boxer. Hey, you already won. How many times are you going to not stop till you get knocked out? Like, because you haven't done that, so then you end up doing that. It's like.
Or you're killing it in the slow lane in the 405, heading to the office and being an incredible success in one narrow dimension, but you haven't been on a wave or a rock or swung a golf club in years. And so I think the more narrow we get, the more trouble we have.
We do.
Avoiding getting old.
We're not designed to do that. That's not what we are. We have too many fingers and too many toes to get limited like that. That's yeah.
Oh man. Oh, Laird, before I let you go, there was this passage at the beginning of the book, and I've been thinking about it ever since I read it. It's sort of like a personality insight, or a thing that really blew me away. I think it was one of the first things you said in the book, where you were just a kid. I don't know if it was 10 years old, you mentioned something, and you saw a father and son heading out to the water, and it was a day that you looked at the water and felt something was weird. And so you mouthed off to those guys and said, hey, I wouldn't go out today, and the guy gave you some choice words back because you were a punk kid. And maybe you can tell the rest of the story and how you decided after that day to become more aggressive with your personality in general.
I mean, it's I think that was one of those things where the guy went out into the water, and then he ended up drowning, and and then I think, I mean, the lesson that for me, I felt like the impact that had on me was that in the future, first of all, I won't be so. I'll be a lot more aggressive about when I intuitively know and feel something in somebody's best interest. And I started to realize that it doesn't matter if they hate me. If I save their life, it's all okay. They can continue to hate me, and I'll be okay with that. So getting over kind of worrying about people's feelings when it comes to their own interest, ultimately that you start to realize, like, you know what, I might hurt somebody's feelings, but in the interest of their safety, I'll have no problem doing that, and I'll do that every time.
What about if it's beyond that into general everyday life? Like if someone comes up with a crappy design for the golf board, are you going to say, look, this ain't going to fly, I'm not going to put my name on this, and be aggressive in that sense too? Or is it more nuanced? I think
it's honesty. I just think it's about being honest. It's just about, and I have a bad habit of telling people what I think. So, but you know what, at the end, you don't have to look back. And so, and you don't hold your, and I always, I mean, you can preface it by, and just say, hey, this is my opinion, I could be wrong. So at the end of the day, you can just give a disclaimer and be like, hey, this is my opinion, I could be wrong, but that looks pretty stupid, and I'm not going to be involved.
Oh, man, it's a pleasure to catch up with you. I appreciate you and your book so much, Life Writer. People go buy it. What else we want to, how do we find you and all that good stuff at the end to plug?
Oh, I don't know. I'm so bad with all that stuff, but definitely go to Laird Superfood. That's a product worth doing. And I know you can see me on Facebook and Instagram and all that not fun stuff. But if you just want to see what I'm doing, just look up, foiling on waves and riding waves.
If you're on there, get out in the water instead, Laird says. Who the other guest who told me, I don't know, whatever, when I asked how people can follow her? It was Gabby Reese, man. So you guys are doing something right. Yeah. Laird Hamilton, thank you so much.
Thank you. Aloha.
Aloha. See you soon, man. You're the best.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to the show. We would love your feedback at getoveryourselfpodcast@gmail.com. And we would also love if you could leave a rating and a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. I know it's a hassle. You have to go to desktop iTunes, click on the tab that says ratings and reviews, and then click to rate the show anywhere from 5 to 5 stars. And it really helps spread the word so more people can find the show and get over themselves, because they need to. Thanks for doing it. Here's a wild idea. How about eating some good, clean, delicious, sustainably raised meat instead of the nasty, trashy feedlot animals? The vast majority of our meat consumption. No wonder there's vegetarians and vegans out there. But look, Wild Idea Buffalo is 100% grass-fed and finished meat. They roam on the open range as they have been for 130,000 years. This wonderful company is doing the best they can to give these animals a good life, harvest them in a humane manner. Check this out. 40 million cattle are slaughtered every year and pushed into the mainstream food supply. You've read books like Fast Food Nation with the disastrous health impact and consequences of this mess. And then, by contrast, 60,000 buffalo a year are harvested. Much more nutritional value, much better feeling deep inside when you order quality meat. Go to wildidea.com, order direct. They'll ship it to your house. It's delicious. You'll be a convert right away. There's nothing in the world like Buffalo Burger. Fantastic. Try it.